What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for whenever this video goes up. 318 is still on track with PES in it for the end of September, but we might not notice it working. Hull stripping is finally here and shown properly, and it looks pretty polished. And it's Talk Like a Pirate Week, but I'm not going to talk like a pirate. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the Star Citizen news each week and put it into one video and share some of my opinions on it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, starting every day but Monday at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Not really this week, though. I'm going to be heading out to Bar Citizen tomorrow. This is being recorded Friday night, and I'll be coming back to streaming this Wednesday. So if you guys want to stop by, hit the follow button, say hello. I'll be back on Wednesday to hang out with you and maybe share some stories from the Bar Citizen event. I also have a second channel, SaltEMike 2, where a lot of the things that we talked about today, you're going to see my raw reaction of. And one of them was pretty crazy, so feel free to check that out as well. But we have a ton to get through this week, so let's start out with the Squadron 42 monthly report. And as per usual, it's Squadron 42. It's not Star Citizen, but we break down the report because a lot of the teams are working on Squadron 42 and porting over their work into the PU now. So we're only going to cover stuff that really focuses on something that could be coming to the PTU fairly soon, and we start out with animation. There was more talk about EVA and zero-G animations, which will clearly make their way into the PU at some point, and then gameplay features. There's not a lot here, but they talk about the Moby Glass and its transition into building blocks, which we all know is a major need in the PU. For level design, they talked about space and dogfight teams, which sounds a lot like the work that the Vehicle Experience team from the PU has hinted at, where they needed to kind of get everything working properly in Squadron, which is why we're not really seeing a lot of progress on their work in the persistent universe. Then lastly, for UI, there's just a lot more chat about the star map and terminal screens and things like that. So not a whole lot for the Squadron 42 monthly report this week. There's been other ones in the past that were much more in depth for PU related features, and I'm sure we'll see better ones in the future. They start this week's Roadmap Roundup with a 318 update, and they just state that they still expect Evo at the end of the month, and they will double down on that on SCL later in the video, but it's not all rainbows and butterflies. They then go and explain that they're going to tie 3.18 to a major marketing event. IAE is their biggest ship sale of the year, and it has a specific date that they usually try to keep to. They've done this before where they relate a patch to this specific event or Invictus, and it pushes the patch out too early. That may happen this time, it may not, but the end of the month is when we're supposed to get Evo for 3.18. It's going to stay in EvoCati/PTU, those are both the same thing, for 2 to 3 months. Mid-November is when IAE is planned. That is 1.5 months from the end of September. It is automatically going to be rushed out for their minimum expectations of a PTU release just based off of that. So unless they plan on delaying a marketing event, which they've never done before, this is likely going to be a problem. Let me know what you guys think about this. It just sticks out to me that they didn't look at the calendar when they said all the things that they're saying. So yeah, I'm a little confused on this one. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure the end of September, which is the beginning of October, is a month and a half from mid-November. Then there's release view changes. They're adding the Drake Corsair to the patch. And yeah, because it's taken so long to get 318 out, the Corsair's kind of finished, which is great, I guess. And then they removed the new interdictions and environmental space missions because they required additional work to make them well work. So they're now off release view for now. The progress tracker changes. The Xi'an medium fighter, the Santokiai, is now on the progress tracker, and Squadron 42 ships pushed out the Apollo and the Tumbril Ranger from that tracker. And lastly, persistent hangars are now also off the tracker, but it's not as bad as it seems because they're prerequisite. The freight elevators are getting a massive focus, so it's really making progress towards persistent hangars. They just don't really know when they'll be scheduled again because freight elevators are going to be taking up so much time, it seems. And for video updates this week, we start out with Inside Star Citizen, and it is a big Salvage hull stripping preview. And the first thing that they start out with isn't what they typically start out with, which is what is hull stripping. It's more of how it's going to change the Star Citizen experience altogether.
So right now, when you destroy a ship, that's kind of it.
That's where Salvage comes in. We sort of extend the life of the spaceship.
We want you to be able to find destroyed versions of these, look at them in ways you would never have seen them before, and have this extra gameplay with them.
Now, they didn't do the best job of explaining it here, but basically when you blow up a ship, it's going to become a salvageable wreck. But they don't want us to just follow around PvP ships, it seems like, and it's explained fairly well in a Spectrum post here what they want, sort of. At the bottom, they just say that they know that they want a solution outside of just cleaning up after a PvP fight, but they don't know if it's going to make it into 3.18. It's very vague, but I like the idea of having to work with a PvP group maybe to find the wrecks. But at the same time, I've always enjoyed mining and exploring a little bit and looking for ore, so I would imagine this would be something like that as well, and we probably need a bit of both. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, what you would prefer, working together with others, or just kind of playing Elite Dangerous sort of style gameplay and being fairly solo. They next go in to explain what hull stripping is, in case you don't follow the project that much.
Hull stripping right now is split into two parts. We have the FPS side, and you have the vehicle side. In the Vulture, you activate the salvage mode, which then allows you to use the scraper beams to operate them over the surface area of the ship and gather the material. For the Reclaimer, we highly recommend you to come in a group.
You'll go out, you'll find a wreck, turn on the great big front lights of the Reclaimer so you can see what you're doing, and the two people in the salvage turrets will start blasting away at the hull to strip it off. As that happens, you're gathering what we call RMC, recycled material composite material, which gets put into cargo boxes in the filler stations that are in the back of the Reclaimer. And you'll need someone back there to take these full crates out of the dispenser and stack them away on your cargo grid.
And once you have your cargo hold full, you fly to the station where you then can sell the commodity.
Okay, that was a long clip, but they did a really good job of explaining the salvage gameplay loop with hull stripping in ships. Now, the thing that I really hope sticks is the group gameplay with the Reclaimer, because multi-crew mining just doesn't work that well with splitting up the money. It's fun, but it's not profitable. So I hope that sticks a little bit with the Reclaimer. And then they go in to explain the FPS loop.
The FPS loop in comparison is much simpler. You just buy a Grey Cat multi-tool. You make sure that you buy the salvage attachment. This is the moment where you can scrape off any material that is salvageable right away.
We also want to allow you to use that material that you gain from hull scraping to immediately repair any damage your ship might have taken.
You will see where on your own ship you have repaired, so you're kind of getting this battle scarring of your ship.
Now, I bet most of you forgot this, but this part of the loop was a Squadron 42 actor feature team move over. This is the first thing they worked on for Squadron that has ported over to the PU, and honestly, it looks a little bit more polished than you would have expected. In the video near the cargo dispensers and on the screen, you can fill the canisters with material to repair your ships without having to scrape in FPS, an element that I don't think ever would have made it in a Tier 0 implementation. And next was just a visual overview of the Drake Vulture, and it's one of those ships that I love. Small, livable, and it feels functional. I'm such a fan of the solo career type ships since it's pretty nice to just see yourself as a privateer, and yeah, pun intended, because the reason I came to this game is because of Wing Commander Privateer, right? Next up is Star Citizen Live, and it was all about persistent entity streaming, and the one they started out with, I'm not going to lie, it came as a bit of a surprise.
For 3.18, the focus of this is mostly in maintaining what came before, converting what came before, and ensuring it works with this new foundation.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay.
Like right now, I know one of the questions, if you want to jump a little bit into those, is when we talk about PS, we talk about the server and we talk about the player shard. I think that was one question, and people asking, okay, what's the difference between a server and a shard? And for now, for this very first version, there's not a difference between both because we still run one server per shard. We separate those two words because eventually a shard will be much larger than just one server. Once we get to server meshing, which will be in later iterations, that's when we have multiple servers per shard. But in this very first iteration, as you said, we basically we took the foundation of the engine and we replaced it with this new persistent entity database. We try to get at par with what's there, right? So that means we basically take all the tech we already have, one server per shard, and we replace that with persistent entity stream.
Now, the actual idea of how PES works is not a surprise. The fact that a single server is a single shard right now, but eventually will change, is not something I have an issue with. It's this that caught me off guard.
The question is, since PES is per server, then how do we get back onto the same server that our items are on?
Well, the very first. So the first part of the question is before server matching is PES per server, and as I kind of touched on the previous answer, yes, persistent entity streaming is per server, but as you can take items out of the server database into your global database, and we made sure it's the same exact database, the same data structures, there will be more persistence. So you can take persistence from one server to another server by putting items into your inventory and then taking them out of the inventory into a new server. Your second question is, how do we get back onto the same server? For 3.18, we won't address any matchmaking changes. So for the very first version of persistent entity streaming, you will just use the same matchmaking logic you have right now. That means if you start up your client, you get randomly matched to a server or a shard. I can use those terms interchangeable at the moment.
So essentially, unless I get incredibly lucky to get back in my last server, I cannot see the impact of PES. The coffee cup that I left somewhere, the gun that I left hidden somewhere, none of it. I won't be able to find that because it's not in the server that I'm in now. This was not communicated in any publications made by the community team or anyone else until now. It was always implying the reduced impact of 30Ks and client crashes with 3.18. Now, it sounds like if you use your ship as a storage container, you will mitigate some of the problem. You basically use that and store it into a station, and that can kind of be your home where you keep all your stuff, and there should be a lot less problems with that. Bed logging is another one that will also work. Client crashes should not be as big of an issue either, because if you're playing with a group of friends, you're easily going to get back in that server, right? You just join on them. And I want to reiterate, all this makes perfect sense. All of it makes perfect sense. If you're on another server and joined a new one, it would be mega weird if you logged in and then everyone else that's in the server just sees all the things that you interact with just spawn in from the previous server. It makes no sense. And the expectations that were set is the only thing that's upsetting me. And just to make sure this is really clear.
So the first fundamental point you have to understand is every single item can only exist once, right? So you can't have a copy of the same exact instance of an item in multiple shards. If you have your ship and you bring it to shard A, it is in shard A. that chip can't exist in a different shard. And there's a good reason for it. If it would exist in multiple shards, what happens if in one shard someone shoots the left wing off, in the other shard someone shoots the right wing off, right? We can't allow that to happen. So what that means is, if that chip is in a shard, it's locked to the shard. It is just part of that instance. If you take that chip and bring it into your global inventory, that's then your way to take this chip and bring it with you to a different shard.
Okay, all this is perfectly clear to me. And to move something to another server to ensure that it's there, it needs to be stored in an inventory, on a ship, stored at a station, right? Very, very clear. How we need to look at Star Citizen right now is there is a server list, US 1 through US whatever, right? And we can't see it. And when I first join a server and patch 318 for the first time, I'm randomly assigned a server. I can't find my way back to that server without some form of matchmaking or a list that I can see. We're not going to see that list ever for a number of reasons. And if you want to be very skeptical, that reason would be maybe being able to see how many players are actually playing Star Citizen at a given time. News publications, all sorts of things, may say bad stuff. If you want to just be normal, they probably don't want to do the UI work to have that happen when the server meshing system will handle the matchmaking in the future. Now that's all the bad. The power of PES is special, and this is why.
Before persistent entity streaming, that means that this whole world would be dead because the memory is gone, everything is gone. With persistent entity streaming, however, the shard and the state of the shard still exists, right? The server crashed because it ran out of memory, or there was a game code bug or whatever. It's always game code bugs, by the way.
Yes,
always. It's never the core tech.
Yep.
Anyways, when that happens, we can actually start up a new server, and it can load back that shard and then continue simulation for exactly where we left off. Again, for 3.18, because we don't want to address matchmaking just yet, we will do what Benoit just said, where we try to locate all the ships and we store them into your location inventory so you don't lose your ship and the progress on that ship. However, the ultimate goal is that when a shard server crashes, that we restart a new server for that shard, and that matchmaking will allow your player to reconnect to that shard.
If and when they work on matchmaking, the reason this is powerful is that before, when a server crashed, server US number 1, if it crashes, everything was lost. Now, server US number 1, everything is saved. It crashes, it recovers, and if you ever get to go back to it, everything will be there. Once matchmaking is in, it'll be just like any other game you play. DayZ, Conan, Rust. If that server goes down, you join Rust US number 1, and everything that you had done right before the server crashed will still be there, right? It brings us up to that level of game. It kind of makes it an actual game. We just can't get back into the server. And I'll end the PES matchmaking conversation with this. And Jared, thank you very much for following up with this question.
You did say something else in there that I want to follow up on right now. You said because we don't want to do matchmaking right now. Why?
Well, there's always the resource constraint, right? So the same team who would probably work on matchmaking is currently working on the entity graph. And it's also about risk. If we go and quite frank, 3.18 is a giant risk already because so much new technology, right? We're replacing a database which we have built over the last 5 years, and it came to its limits in the last couple of patches, as we all, I think, experienced. But that is like 5 years of development, which we're now replacing with complete brand new tech. We have, I think it's at that point, probably 8 different kinds of new services which we're deploying. We also at the same time switched our underlying back-end communication tech to a new framework, which we already battle testing in live right now, but like a lot of new services using that new tech. So there's a lot of like moving parts coming together. So every piece we add on top of that adds more risk, right? So now we also need to change matchmaking. Now we need to change, like all those things add, and it obviously makes the release way less manageable.
Whew. Okay, that was another long one, but I hope it's clear why they didn't want to or couldn't do this. And I'm cool with that now. And I would have been cool with it if they said it 2 years ago. I would have been cool with it if they said it 1 year ago. I would have been cool with it if they said it in May in the letter for the chairman. I would have been cool with it if they said it again at any point leading up to this SCL. What I'm not cool with is the fact that they probably knew this was a thing some time ago and never said it. So they set the expectations for me and I think a number of people that I think server crashes and client crashes would have been less detrimental in 3.18 when they're just not going to be. And I didn't set those expectations in my head by like looking at another example would be I see a concept ship and I create this idea in my head of what I'll do with that concept ship. And when that concept ship is released in game, I'm not able to do any of those things. I didn't make this up in my head. This was in the letter for the chairman. This was in communications from CIG about PES and persistence for years. This expectation was set by them. Now, lastly, I think the biggest feature that PES unlocks is for orgs, for player friends groups, and it's exciting.
With our old system, we had this, it's called lifetime management, and it would arbitrarily remove entities once they hit a certain cap. And we realized that's not really great for play experience. For example, I think at the moment, players can only spawn up to 3 ships. If they spawn another ship, the old one gets removed. For persistent entity streaming, we actually revisit that problem, and we decided, okay, how can we make this nicer for the player, but also B, how can we make this actually work good for persistent entity streaming and also for server meshing, where maybe it doesn't make sense if a player has 5 ships spawned and they're all separated in open space and streamed out, they don't really cost us performance. So why do we still need to arbitrarily limit that? And for that, we have the guys in Frankfurt developed a new system. It's called density management. And it operates on relative cost of an area. So the idea is that instead of just taking arbitrary numbers on objects, we look at areas and we look at the amount of items in that area. And we only start to remove items the moment the relative cost of that area becomes too high.
Now, he goes on more to say that ships are going to be weighted very high and likely will be the last to be removed in these scenarios. But yeah, for group play, for orgs, this is actually a game changer. And this is the first thing I'm testing in EVO, just spawning ship after ship after ship after ship and having friends jump into them and seeing what happens. Yeah, so those are my thoughts around PES. Those are my thoughts around all the updates. I'm comfortable with everything that's happening. I just still am so frustrated by the lack of openness and the lack of clarity around the communication with everything that is less than the expectation. Anytime the expectation changes and it's a little negative, they don't say anything until like the last possible minute. And that's just not good, man. Like, we need to just stop doing that and just get it right, guys. Like, come on. We're adults and we can handle it, but it's not as easy to handle when it's always kind of the last minute type of thing. And the other thing that's been frustrating is the eventually and the what we'd like to be able to do and what we should be able to do. And listen, I'm comfortable with the way PES is being handled. What I'm not comfortable with is it sounds like inventory. We'd love to do a move all button, but then they don't, right? Things like that. So this could fall down that path again with the matchmaking side, and that's scary. And we'll start out here with lore. And the lore post this week was about Cousin Crow's, the shop that's on Orison, and how it came to be. And it's actually a really good read, and I highly recommend it. It was a pretty cool story. And then for the sneak peek, we're seeing Security Post Korea in 3.18 get a little bit of a facelift, and it's looking very Crusader security with the white and blue. And then it's Talk Like a Pirate Week, which is the most ironic thing ever, because CIG has basically nerfed every tool that pirates use into the ground. So it's kind of funny, but there is some cool stuff in there. Namely, there's some sneaky reference to loot-filled pirates. And I don't know, I'm just grabbing at threads here, but maybe FPS pirate Ninetales guys have some cool loot on them that's new and different, but let me know in the comments down below. I doubt this is the case, but maybe it's a sneaky reference at that. There's also 3 new paint skins that are coming into the verse, but they're only purchasable. I was kind of hoping that maybe they would be like a prize, like the Vandal Mask event, but at the same time, I've been very open about wanting to see them go in the direction of selling cosmetics over selling ships and gameplay, right? So I'm kind of torn on that one, but I think it's fine for them to sell. And then there's also the classic Pirate Swarm skin. If you complete Pirate Swarm, you can purchase, I think, or you just get the red pirate skin. I forget on that one, as well as a few contests. And lastly, a Ninetales themed dynamic event schedule. So if you want to join those, feel free to check out the schedule. That will be linked down in the description down below. Now, Bar Citizen, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm recording this on Friday evening because I'm going to Bar Citizen in Orlando this weekend. So I won't be home to upload this on Monday, so I'm not sure when this will be going up, and I may miss context to some of the things that we say if it gets posted on Spectrum or something like that while I'm gone. So I apologize for that. Don't get crazy in the comments down below if you feel that I missed something. If I missed it, it's because I wasn't here, right? But if you are in Orlando for the Bar Citizen, please don't be nervous. Stop by, say hello. Me and my wife will be there, and we're really excited to see you guys and say hi. So please do that. And that'll do it for this week. Thank you so much for watching, guys. That was Week in Review. It's late on Friday, and I enjoyed making this video. It is going through the PES thing multiple times and really trying to understand it makes it a little bit more at ease. If you guys see the SaltEMike 2 video on that, it's going to be emotional. I go through a roller coaster of emotions. I'm angry, I'm upset, and yeah, I'm still upset. But the getting to do this video and thinking and getting through my thoughts and my opinions on it, it always is a little bit more reserved when we get to Week in Review, because I've gone over it a few times. And again, I'm very happy. We have PES in game dev. These guys are going to be able to utilize it at some point. We just got to get that matchmaking. But guys, again, that'll do it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about everything we talked about today. Please leave a like. Subscribe for more of this content, I guess. And I'm back to doing my horrible outros. So let me know how I did, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I see you at Bar Citizen.